Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and the Mazda CX-5 has been one of the top recommended compact crossovers since it came out way back in the early 2010s. It's only been through 2 generations at this point and is arguably getting a bit stale, considering not only has Mazda not thoroughly updated it in many years, but they came out with an entirely new model, the CX-50, that is a little bit lower, longer, and wider, and offers a little bit of a different take on the compact crossover class. But the CX-5 is still the best-selling car in Mazda's portfolio, and I believe for good reason. So today we're going to take a look at some of my pros and cons after spending a week with the car. We're going to reflect on the car a little bit and put it on the Daily Motor leaderboard. This version right here is the Carbon Edition, which gives you the naturally aspirated 2.5-liter motor, standard all-wheel drive on all the CX-5s, and some of the kind of must-have sort of features for buying a new car without giving you any of the superfluous kind of options like ventilated seats. Coming in at about $34,000, you only get it in this polymetal gray color, which is a bit of an irk of mine. We'll talk about that here in the cons section. You still get the plastic cladding, not like some of the upper level trims that do a little bit more of the body coloring there, but you get things like wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, the power opening tailgate like this, or lift gate, and of course important safety features and some cool reddish leather. Really like the back area, very low load height. You've got a spare tire, very important to note there, as well as the Bose subwoofer. Very flat load surface, and something you don't see very often, not only the ability to fold the seats from back here, but the 40-20-40 split fold. I know Right Lane Hog is going to be excited about that one right there. So you could put something long in between and still have these seats stay up. Unfortunately though, when you go to fold these seats, they often get caught by the front seats, and the front left is in my 5'10" driving position. Oh, this one, there we go. You can see you're gonna have to go forward and fold those seats. So I think it's a bit ironic that you can open these, you can fold them from here, but yet you still have to go up to adjust the seats to get them to fold all the way down. Back seat area of the CX-5 is still usable for both adults and rear-facing car seats at 5'10" and my 5'10" driving position. I'm comfortable. I've got knee room, I've got headroom. The seats have recline. Very nice place to be with air vents and some power points within the center right there. Little bit difficult to get in and out of. The doors do open fairly wide, but this opening isn't very wide, so something to be considerate of. And then the front is an attractive place to be with a lot of nice looking materials, good feeling materials, soft touch points, and a smartly laid out interior, which we will get into. But first, my cons on the CX-5. And those start with the sizing. Now, this could be a pro depending on which market segment you're in. If you're somebody who's either just yourself, maybe you and a partner, maybe you, a partner, and one child, this is actually a pretty well-sized vehicle. But compared to a lot of the other compact crossovers on the market, there's a little bit less trunk space, a little bit less seat space, and then a little bit more importantly to me is not only the size and the footprint, but the utilization of space. If you're using this as a family sort of vehicle, you're going to find your places to put things running out quite quickly. The door pockets are average, but then coming in here, you've got 2 medium-sized cup holders, a spot for a wireless device charger, and then a fairly small center console, plus a glove box, and that's it for storage up here, if you don't count the little sunglasses holder up top. We're seeing a lot of innovative storage designs in compact crossovers these days, making family SUV life more doable with a compact crossover. So you've got storage under the shifter area, you've got multiple shelves and storage places in front of the passenger, you've got bigger center consoles, you've got shifters that are getting moved around so that you can have more phone spots, larger cup holders, more door pockets. I understand that this interior looks very nice and is functional from a driving standpoint, but it's not very functional from a family standpoint, and that continues on into the rear of the vehicle. So something to consider if you plan on using the CX-5 for more of a family hauler. Next, this one's a little more subtle, but no digital speed readout. You've got this beautiful analog gauge right in front of us giving you your speed, but because this Carbon model doesn't have a head-up display, I have no way to see my digital speed readout. And these days, it's so much easier to just glance down and see your digital speed. So it'd be nice if they had it somewhere in the digital gauge, or, I mean, I guess you're gonna have to pay more and just get a heads-up display. Next, this carbon model looks cool. It's got this polymetal gray and this cool red leather interior, but it's sort of this less expensive way to get into some of the more premium features like having wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. But if you don't want this color, you have to spend an extra few $1,000s to step up to the next trim just to get those features that a lot of people are going to want to have. And that's a shame to me because I love a lot of the other colors that Mazda makes. Soul Red Crystal is one of my favorite new car colors. I like their blue, I like their brown, I like the sand. This polymetal gray is fine, but they have this carbon model which kind of gives you the best powertrain and the best sound system and features at a reasonable price, but with only one color configuration. That's frustrating to me. And maybe that was a way for them to streamline production and keep their costs down, but I'd rather just see them streamline the trim structure. Man, that's a tough, fun phrase to say. Streamline the trim structure and just give us more for less. Most brands only have 3 or 4 different trims and maybe a package or 2 within their compact crossover lineup. Mazda has a lot going, and maybe it would simplify things to pair out some of those trims. The next con, very low tow rating, only 2,000 pounds for the CX-5. And it's not that I think a lot of people are going to be towing heavy things with their CX-5, but it restricts you in putting bicycles or cargo racks or various hitch accessories on this car. And because it's not a huge compact crossover to begin with, you might want to put three bicycles on a hitch carrier, and you're really going to be maximizing that hitch rating, 200 pounds on the hitch, after you torque things out with some sort of bike rack and maybe have an electrified bicycle or carrier or something like that. It's probably going to be fine for most people, but a lot of compact crossovers are getting up 25, 3,000, maybe even 3,500 pounds. And the last con, it was a little bit of a combo. It's the powertrain from an efficiency standpoint. You don't have any sort of electrified option for the CX-5. No full hybrid, no mild hybrid, no plug-in hybrid. And it's not that fuel efficient. We got 30 miles per gallon in our highway fuel economy testing. And on top of all of that, Mazda put cylinder deactivation on this 2.5 liter. So you can get a base trim, or I think the bottom 2 or 3 trims for the CX-5, get this 2.5 liter without auto stop start and without cylinder deactivation. That one is slightly less efficient in the highway fuel economy and city fuel economy numbers. However, once you get up to the Carbon Edition and above, you get the same engine but with cylinder deactivation. And that saves you a little tiny bit at the pump, but at what costs in development costs and potential longevity issues? So here you've got this compact crossover that isn't quite as efficient as a lot of its competitors, electrified or not electrified. And then with this motor that might potentially have issues after 100,000 miles or so because of the cylinder deactivation, I would love to get the Toyota hybrid that was going in the CX-50 into the CX-5. I understand why it probably won't happen, but something that I would like to have in this category. Moving on to the pros on the CX-5 Carbon, and the first one you can see right here. I still think this car looks so good. It is one of the best looking cars in this category. I think that's fairly universally accepted. As to go as far as to say maybe the best looking in this category, I would say so. That one I'll leave to kind of personal preference, but you can't argue that it doesn't still strike a presence even so many years after this generation CX-5 was launched. I do prefer the models with the body colored lower trim pieces right there, the cladding. Not a huge fan of the plastic cladding, but admittedly, if you're going to be kicking up rocks on a dirt road or something, it makes more sense. But the whole vehicle is a nice cohesive design. They didn't slope off the rear too dramatically as to impose on cargo space. And then the inside looks good too. The mixture of materials, especially with this carbon model, getting this red leather, the red stitching, the shiny bits, the leather bits. The only downside, I suppose, is this piano black right here in the center, which will be scratched up within a few years of ownership, guarantee it. But other than that, this is just such an attractive vehicle inside and out. Love the design. Next, the Bose sound system. Now, it might not quite sound just as good as the Mazda 3, but definitely one of the leaders in the class. It's got a nice, well-balanced, powerful sound. scored well in our sound system testing. You can check that linked below. I love listening to my music in it. Definitely a pro for this one. And then on top of that, the infotainment system as well. If we start up the vehicle, it has a screen in the center that's controlled by this center rotary knob. Now, some people are going to be frustrated by using this system to begin with, but if you spend time, learn how to use it properly, learn the shortcuts, get comfortable with it, you'll likely find that there are so many ways of interacting with the system that become second nature and often quicker and safer than reaching up and touching the screen. Now, I do prefer the newer knob system in the newer Mazdas. It's more of a flatter, round setup. Feels a little bit more modern and works a little bit more fluidly, but this one, still very good. I'm a fan of it. And the next pro, the abundance of physical controls inside the CX-5. Nice, real, physical, pleasant to touch buttons on the steering wheel, physical controls around the cabin, physical controls for HVAC, these rotary knobs, everything like that. Very easy and satisfying interactions in this car. The next pro is the powertrain from a general robustness standpoint. If you take out the potential issues with the cylinder deactivation, this is a tried and true powertrain. Basic 2.5 liter engine that Mazda's been using in hundreds of thousands of vehicles over many years, and then a nice straightforward 6-speed automatic transmission. No dual clutches, no CVTs, just a very simple transmission that theoretically should work for very, very long. The engine isn't a torque monster because it isn't turbocharged, but theoretically it's very understressed, very easy to kind of go through your day-to-day. Yes, Mazda will give you the 2.5 liter turbo, which fills in the lower torque and makes the vehicle feel not only more powerful, but a little bit more luxurious because you just have more of that powerful grunt off the line and in day-to-day type driving. Here's a great example. I'm gonna accelerate. You kind of hear the engine working. It's got to rev out a bit. The turbo wouldn't have that quite as much, makes more power down low, but I'm totally fine with this one. It doesn't sound grainy, it doesn't sound bad, and I just know that it is an engine working and it will continue to work for a long time, provided that cylinder deactivation doesn't cause any issues. My last pro is the driving dynamics of the CX-5. Yes, it's not that exciting of a powertrain, but the steering and the chassis and the feel of the vehicle feels more sprightly and lively than your standard compact crossover. It's sort of the trade-off of having, maybe a vehicle that's not quite as optimized from a size perspective for families. It gets you a car that, yes, can take families and is a little bit, just a little bit more exciting to toss around curves and on-ramps and twisty canyon roads, whatever it is. You'll find just a little bit more driving feedback and satisfaction from this car. You can put it down into manual mode. And it's just, it feels right. If you're somebody who's used to driving a little bit more sporty cars, you recognize that a little bit more of a satisfaction to getting in this one. Oh, you totally could have made that, but okay. So I do still like the CX-5. In fact, years ago, Topher Drives and I put out a video talking about how the CX-5 is one of the best cars that you can buy on the new car market. It works for smaller families, it works for individuals, it works for driving enthusiasts, it works for kind of non-driving enthusiasts, if you will. It's sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. However, it is hard to ignore some of the competition these days that just does so much more. The Mazda CX-5 still looks good and drives well, but when you're talking $34,000 for this one and creeping up into the 40s for the top level trims, you can get cars that are more comfortable, more spacious, more tech focused, have longer warranties, more efficient. And it's just getting harder and harder out here for the Mazda CX-5. And the trouble is the CX-50 doesn't feel as good to drive and doesn't feel as well built. So, I don't know. I don't want the CX-5 to go away, but I don't know if I can recommend it as wholeheartedly as I used to. It's still a car I enjoy driving, but I don't think it would be my buy in this segment anymore. And with that, we do need to put it on the Daily Motor leaderboard. Current leaders: Hyundai Santa Fe, Nissan Armada, and Mazda 3. CX-5. Yeah. See, this is... Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think it's going to last this way throughout the year. It's been a very competitive year so far. It's going in its 7th place, below the Honda Civic hatchback hybrid. Civic had a more impressive powertrain, lower costs, more fun to drive. I even think a family would be just as well off in the Sonata hybrid as this, and they'd be much better off in the Hyundai Santa Fe. I mean, low 40s for a car that gets you much, much more. I don't know. I mean, the CX-5 is still nice. Don't get me wrong. And let's just bring up the 2024 car ranking real quick, fast, and let me see where I would put it. Yeah, I think it would go probably about 17th place 17th place in last year's rankings out of 45 cars. So that's pretty good. Still a nice option, just maybe not as compelling as it was back when it first came out, and even just a few years ago. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the CX-5, check the link below for our other coverage. We've got the Bose sound system test, we've got the highway fuel economy test, and all of our previous reviews. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.